The Indiana Fever have Caitlin Clark, the most valuable player women's basketball has ever seen. She sells out arenas on the road. She moves television ratings nobody thought were possible. She generates revenue that's reshaping the entire league. And somehow, the front office spent the entire offseason making decisions that suggest they either don't understand what they have or simply don't care. A coach who wants to move her off the ball. Free agents who spent last season publicly criticizing her. A top 10 draft pick spent on a position they already had covered twice over. Fever fans aren't just frustrated right now, they feel genuinely betrayed. And they've drawn a line. Championship or bust. Not a deep run, not a finals appearance. A championship. Because anything less means every single one of these controversial decisions stays on the permanent record. Here's exactly what went wrong.
Championship or bust. That's the only thing that's going to restore some type of faith in this Indiana Fever front office, and I'm not even sure if that is enough. Championship or bust. We all know if you have Caitlin Clark on her team, you got a shot. But if you really want Caitlin Clark to...
When Stephanie White was hired, the reaction wasn't immediately negative. She had a respectable coaching resume, genuine experience in women's basketball, and credentials that made the hire look reasonable on the surface. But then she started talking publicly about her vision for the team, and what she said about Caitlin Clark set off alarm bells that fans are still talking about months later. White made comments suggesting she wanted Clark playing off-ball more frequently. That one statement broke something in the fan base, because this isn't a player who needs to be repositioned. Clark finished her rookie season, averaging over 8 assists per game. Her entire value to a basketball team is built on her ability to initiate offense, read defenses at speed, and create opportunities for teammates at a level nobody else in the WNBA currently matches. White's public vision was to take that player and ask her to stand in the corner waiting for someone else to make things happen. This isn't a minor tactical tweak. This is a fundamental reimagining of how to deploy your most valuable asset, and not in a direction that makes obvious sense. Fans immediately started asking the question that still hasn't been answered satisfactorily. Why would you hire someone who wants to make your best player less of what makes her great? The suspicion that quickly formed was uncomfortable but hard to dismiss. Maybe the front office is more interested in proving they can win their way than winning the right way with the talent they actually have. And that suspicion has poisoned the atmosphere before a single game tips off.
The Indiana Fever continue to face backlash over this offseason, continue to face backlash over the draft, continue to face backlash over Stephanie White, continue to face backlash over my name's Amber Cox, continues to face backlash over Kelly Crosscuff. Fans are still, and rightfully so, not happy, not excited, not enthused. Feel like not only fans have been betrayed, they feel like the front office.
Free agency was supposed to be the moment Indiana corrected course. They had cap space, they had needs, and they had the clearest possible blueprint for what kind of players would help Caitlin Clark reach the next level. Floor spacers, defensive versatility, size in the front court, players who complement a point guard who creates everything off the dribble. Instead, they signed players who had spent significant portions of the previous season publicly criticizing Clark and the fanbase surrounding her. Not vague or easy to misinterpret comments buried in obscure interviews, national platform appearances, accusations of racism directed at Clark's supporters, references to that same fanbase as the dark side. One athlete openly admitted she couldn't stop thinking about Clark during her own team's playoff run, which is a strange thing to say publicly, and an even stranger thing to reward with a contract. Meanwhile, Kelly Crosscuff was publicly talking about protecting locker room culture. Stephanie White was emphasizing team chemistry and cohesion. Those are exactly the right priorities for any competitive team. But you cannot build genuine chemistry by importing players whose documented feelings about your franchise player range from complicated to openly hostile. Either the front office failed basic due diligence and didn't know about these comments embarrassing, or they knew and didn't care, which is far more troubling. Fans had no interest in choosing the charitable interpretation. The contradiction between the stated culture goals and the actual roster decisions was too wide and too obvious to explain away. If there were fans still willing to extend the benefit of the doubt after the coaching hire and the free agency period, the 2025 draft removed most of them quickly and decisively. With the 10th overall pick, Indiana selected Raven Johnson from South Carolina. Johnson is a defensive-minded point guard with genuine talent and a professional future worth watching. But the Fever already had Caitlin Clark at point guard. They already had Tammy Bentley. They already had Ty Harris. What the roster desperately needed was size, specifically a backup center capable of giving Aaliyah Boston meaningful rest. Boston played visibly exhausted down the stretch of last season because there was nobody reliable behind her. Everyone watching could see it. The front office apparently couldn't. So they took a third point guard with a top 10 pick. The basketball logic collapses on its own, but the optics compound the problem significantly. Johnson has her own documented history of commentary about Clark, and the spotlight she receives commentary that fans noticed immediately and connected to the broader pattern of this offseason. What truly revealed how much the front office anticipated Backlash was their social media behavior immediately after the announcement. They flooded their timeline with Johnson content, 10 consecutive promotional posts, trying to generate enthusiasm that wasn't arriving organically. Compare that to how they handled the Michaela Timpson selection the previous year. 3 posts, then they moved on. Nobody questioned Timpson's fit. Johnson required a full manufactured campaign because the front office already knew the pick would be a problem. For anyone tracking the business side of women's basketball, the salary cap math from this offseason tells its own story, and it's not a flattering one. Between Raven Johnson and Tammy Bentley, Indiana now has approximately $700,000 in salary committed to backup point guards. In a league operating under tight financial constraints, where roster construction requires real discipline, that's a significant chunk of resources invested in pure redundancy at the one position where the franchise already has a generational player locked in. Consider what $700,000 could have addressed instead. A stretch 4 with enough shooting range to give Clark driving lanes that defenses can't collapse on. A defensive big who keeps Aaliyah Boston fresh through the stretch run rather than running her into the ground. A versatile wing capable of guarding multiple positions without creating exploitable mismatches on the other end. Any one of those additions makes Indiana a meaningfully better team. All 3 together would have been transformational. Instead, the Fever entered 2025 with 3 point guards on the roster, led by the best point guard in the league, coached by someone who publicly suggested the best point guard in the league should play off the ball. The Chloe Peterson exchange that circulated on social media captured fan frustration precisely. When Peterson defended the pick by suggesting Clark and Johnson could coexist as offensive and defensive point guards, the response was immediate. We already had a backup. We needed a backup for the backup. You don't spend a top 10 pick solving a problem that was already solved. Sometimes the clearest picture of where a fan base stands doesn't come from analysis or polling. It comes from a single social media post and what people say in response to it. When the Indiana Fever posted about additional single-game tickets being available for the upcoming season, a completely routine promotional move that every franchise makes, the reply section became a referendum on everything fans had been feeling since the offseason began. No thanks. I'd like to see Caitlin Clark be Caitlin Clark. Not happening with this coach and this front office. That was one reply. Another stated plainly that they weren't spending money on a franchise just to watch Clark stationed at small forward, waiting for plays to develop around her. Others went further, sending messages to the front office that were blunt enough to leave no room for interpretation. These aren't casual observers upset about ticket prices. These are invested supporters who care deeply about this franchise and this player, and they feel genuinely betrayed. Not the ordinary disappointment that comes when a team loses or a trade doesn't work out. Betrayal. The kind that comes when the people running something you love make repeated decisions that suggest they don't respect it the same way you do. That distinction matters enormously. Disappointment fades after a few wins. Betrayal accumulates. And the front office created this specific dynamic through 3 consecutive decisions: coaching hire, free agency, draft, each of which individually raised questions and collectively built a wall between the organization and its most passionate supporters. The LeBron comparison keeps surfacing in these conversations, and as uncomfortable as it makes people, it keeps coming back because it's genuinely relevant. Cleveland was certain LeBron James would never leave. He was loyal. He was from Akron. He'd given everything to that city and that organization, and the possibility of him walking away felt impossible right up until the moment it wasn't. When he left, devastated fans burned his jersey in the street. The reason they were blindsided was simple. They'd convinced themselves his loyalty was unconditional. They never seriously asked whether the organization was being equally loyal to him by surrounding him with the talent and structure he needed to actually win. Caitlin Clark is under contract through 2028. There's no realistic departure scenario before then, and nothing about her current situation suggests she's thinking about leaving. But for fans watching this offseason unfold, the question isn't about 2025. It's about what the relationship between Clark and this organization looks like when that contract expires and she has a genuine decision to make. Loyalty flows both directions. If Indiana spends the next several years limiting Clark's effectiveness through philosophical misalignment, surrounding her with players who don't complement her strengths, and leaving roster gaps that fall directly on her shoulders during crunch time, why would she stay when she doesn't have to? The front office should be asking that question every single day. Based on the evidence of this offseason, it's genuinely unclear whether they are. Championship or bust isn't a slogan. It's the only verdict the Indiana Fever front office left fans with after this offseason. A coaching hire that questions Clark's role, free agency moves that imported her critics, a draft pick that ignored the roster's most obvious need, $700,000 committed to redundancy at a position already covered by the best player in the league. Every one of those decisions stays on the record unless a championship wipes it clean. And championships are the hardest thing in professional sports to manufacture, especially when fan trust is already fractured and the margin for error has essentially disappeared. The Fever will probably be competitive. Caitlin Clark guarantees a baseline level of that. But competitive stopped being enough the moment these decisions were made. Come October, this front office either gets vindicated completely or spends the next several years explaining why they wasted the Clark era before it even truly began. Stay locked with my channel, Simply Explained, for further WNBA updates.